snow-covered streets of Moscow, 1929, a boy was born, destined to become a legend in black. Little Lev grew up during harsh times, amidst factories, rationing, and echoes of war. But the spark in his eyes never faded. He worked in a munitions plant during World War II, his childhood sacrifice for his nation. Despite long days in the factory, Lev found solace in sport. Football and ice hockey, any ball, any field. He joined the Dynamo Moscow Youth Academy, uncertain, nervous, but ready to give everything. At first, they didn't believe in him. He let in goals, made mistakes. Many said he was just not made for it. But Yashin trained harder than anyone. Early mornings, bruised hands, endless repetition. His heart refused to give up. He was eventually noticed, not for his talent alone, but for his spirit, his grit, and the fire in his eyes. Lev made his debut for Dynamo Moscow's senior team. He wore black, not by rule, but by will, a shadow behind the defense. And from that day on, the world would remember him as the Black Spider, a man with 8 arms who stopped everything. Every time the ball came near, it was as if the world paused. Yashin in black was always ready. He revolutionized goalkeeping, not just by reflex, but by vision, commanding the defense like a general. His style was aggressive. He dived at feet, punched through crowds, and never feared the pain. The fans adored him, the opponents feared him, and to his teammates, he was a wall they trusted with their lives. Off the pitch, he was humble, quiet, polite, a man of the people who traveled by tram just like everyone else. In 1956, he was elected for the Soviet national team, his name now carried by the wind beyond Moscow. He stood before the world in the 1958 World Cup, an unknown from behind the Iron Curtain, soon to be unforgettable. Match after match, he stunned crowds with impossible saves, hands like magnets, movements like poetry. He was named the best goalkeeper in the tournament. No longer a Soviet secret. He was now a global phenomenon. But for Lev, this was just the beginning. He returned to Moscow not as a hero, but as a man still hungry for greatness. Back in Dynamo Moscow, Yashin trained harder than ever, driven not by fame, but by perfection. Each save was a challenge. Each match, a mission. For Yashin, goalkeeping was more than a role, it was art. In 1960, the USSR stormed into the European Championship, and Yashin stood like an iron gate before the final. Against Yugoslavia in the final, he leapt, blocked, and commanded, each save pushing his country closer to glory. When the final whistle blew, it wasn't just a win, it was history. The USSR had won, and Yashin was its beating heart. Recognition followed. Awards, honors, headlines. But Yashin remained grounded, always returned to the training pitch first. He had a code: no wine before a match, no indulgence in praise, only hard work and silence. At the 1963 England versus the rest of the world match, he dazzled Wembley, earning ovations from a foreign crowd. He made save after save, diving like a Black Panther. Sports writers called it a performance from another planet. Later that year, he became the only goalkeeper in history to win the Ballon d'Or, the highest individual honor in football. Later that year, he became the only goalkeeper in history to win the Ballon d'Or, the highest individual honor in football. Winning the Ballon d'Or didn't change him, it humbled him. To Yashin, it wasn't a prize. It was pressure to be better. He carried the dreams of millions. In every save, every dive, he defended more than a goal. He defended a nation's pride. Back home, children practiced goalkeeping in alleys, shouting his name, dreaming of becoming the next Black Spider. He kept playing through pain, through cold, through doubt. His legacy wasn't just talent, it was endurance. Some said his best years were behind him. But Yashin proved again and again, greatness isn't a moment, it's a lifetime. In the 1966 World Cup at 37, he returned to the world stage, not to relive the past, but to remind them who he was. Though no longer as fast, his mind was sharper. He read the game like a book he'd written himself. The USSR reached the semifinals, their best finish ever. And behind that success stood one man in black. When he finally retired in 1971, it wasn't with tears, but with peace. He had done enough. He had become legend. Statues would be built, awards named, and stories told. But the truest honor was a memory he left in the hearts of millions. Even in retirement, Yashin stayed close to the game, coaching, mentoring, and forever wearing the colors of Dynamo. He taught kids not just to catch the ball, but to respect it, to understand its weight, its story. To the world, he was a symbol. To his students, he was a teacher. And to himself, he remained a servant of the game. He never chased celebrity. He never sought headlines. Yet his name echoed across continents. In an age of flash and fame, he was humble. In an era of noise, he was silent, but powerful. As age caught up, so did pain. Old injuries returned like ghosts, but his spirit remained untouched. He lost a leg to complications later in life, but even then, he stood tall in the eyes of the world. In 1990, the Black Spider breathed his last. But legends don't die, they rest. From Moscow to Madrid, Rio to Rome, goalkeepers wore black, not as tribute to fashion, but to a man who made it holy. Lev Yashin wasn't just the best goalkeeper. He was football's conscience, a wall between chaos and glory. FIFA called him the greatest goalkeeper of the 20th century. But for millions, he was something more, a guardian of dreams. Children still whisper his name when they dive across schoolyards. They don't want to be a keeper. They want to be Yashin. Statues crumble. Films fade. But what Yashin gave the game cannot be erased by time. They called him the Black Panther, the Iron Curtain, the man who stopped everything. But he called himself simply Leviticus. His gloves weren't magic. His cap wasn't armor. His power came from purpose. Every shot he saved was a story denied. Every dive, a new chapter written in resistance. The net behind him was sacred, and he made sure it stayed untouched for as long as he stood. His story was more than Soviet, more than sport. It was human, a tale of will and walls and quiet war. He stood in front of the world's greatest strikers and made them feel small. Today, keepers wear gloves made in labs, trained by machines. But none stand taller than the man in black, who needed nothing but heart. They say every goalkeeper lives in isolation, a lonely soldier. But Yashin turned that loneliness into legend. He didn't just stop goals. He stopped time, bending moments with reflexes born from street games and struggle. Every time a penalty was awarded, silence fell, not from fear, but from the awe of what he might do next. Referees glanced at him with a mix of respect and curiosity. Was he man or something more? In him, Soviet steel met childhood fire. His path wasn't made, it was forged. To some, he was a man in black. To others, the shadow in the net. But to football, he was a revolution. He didn't play to impress. He played to protect, a fortress of muscle, instinct, and purpose. Even the best strikers whispered his name. Even the bold hesitated before shooting. He wasn't chasing records. He was chasing meaning, every dive a message to history. In Russia, there are fairy tales. But Lev Yashin was real, and he was larger than them all. He was never loud, never boastful. His greatness was quiet, built on deeds, not words. They said the world would never see his kind again, and decades later, they were right. Some play to win. Others play to endure. Yashin played so no one else had to suffer defeat. With every leap, he wrote poetry. With every punch, he carved a legacy into stone. The number one wasn't just on his back. It was what he became. In the end, it wasn't about the saves, the trophies, or the applause. It was about honor. He belonged to a country, to a club, to a family. But most of all, he belonged to the game. And now, every time a black jersey steps into the goal, his shadow steps in too. Lev Yashin didn't just guard the goal. He guarded an idea. That football is more than winning. It's sacrifice. This is the story of the man in black, the last line of defense, the eternal number one, Lev Yashin.